Do you ever find yourself laughing at something that's not actually funny, but your brain is already running downhill with the abandon of a toddler in a Superman cape?
Or making a joke in the middle of a conversation that no one else seems to get, or just using humor to ease an uncomfortable situation.
Do you look back and realize, ooh, I wasn't just being funny, I may have been compensating for something?
If so, then this episode is for you because today we're talking about ADHD and humor.
Why we are funny, what it does for our nervous systems, and what it's been saying about us the whole time. This is Angry on the Inside. I'm Jess.
And I'm Jeannine. We're both certified ADHD life coaches, but this podcast isn't coaching.
It's not therapy and it's not medical advice.
It's just a real, honest conversation about being women with late diagnosed ADHD and everything that goes along with it.
Take what resonates, leave the rest. I want to say this up front because I think it matters. ADHD brains really are wired for humor.
We're not talking just like the class clown kind of humor.
It's not about performing. It's about fast associations, jumping between ideas, seeing connections other people don't notice.
Like when your brain goes, oh, that reminds me of this. And wait, what if I put these two things together? And by the time you've caught up, the joke is already out of your mouth.
The impulsivity helps with the timing. The hyper focus that we end up in something where we're really just precisely on point with that pattern spotting. It makes observations a little bit sharper than we tend to realize. And that lets us kind of fire off some of those jokes and make those connections. Our level of sarcasm is ridiculous. And most people tend to think that we are being extremely serious.
Yes. We're just like so quick to make that sarcastic comment. People just, they walk away thinking, huh?
For late diagnosed women, our senses of humor, they get labeled as a personality instead of neurology. Some people think that we come off as snarky or as smartasses. We're just being self-entertaining. And that's one of those things that comes up that we don't talk about. We are so used to having to keep ourselves entertained. We think putting it out there is like just fun for everyone. There is an honest joy in that. There's a creativity and a delight, a connection. But we tend to find it with other neurodiverse groups. We talk about this, finding our community and things like that to help us enjoy parts of our own personality where we can be open and free to share it. And it's recognized for what it is, for being fun and funny and trying to joke, not trying to correct or belittle or anything like that. A lot of times people think we're trying to act as if we are smarter when we think they are actually seeing the pattern. And so we're trying to joke, they aren't seeing it. And so it just makes it an uncomfortable situation sometimes.
There are some people who just don't get sarcasm. And you can't make them get sarcasm.
What I think is funny is we're the ones that aren't supposed to get sarcasm, but we're the ones that use it the most and then have to explain that we're just kidding. That overlap happens because of our masking when jokes come out sideways. I feel like this is a two-pronged topic. It's the inappropriate laughter, one where you laugh at things that other people would not find funny.
Right.
And then there is the nervous laugher who laughs because the situation is uncomfortable and they don't know what else to do. And I am a nervous laugher to a point that like it has impacted relationships kind of bad. I do try to let my friends know up front, I am a nervous laugher. I laugh in the most inappropriate times and I cannot help it. And I find things to be hilarious that probably aren't the average person. And I cover that up by saying I have a dark sense of humor, but really I just can't help it. It's got to get out somehow. It's either I'm going to laugh or I'm going to scream. So I figure I learned a long time ago to laugh.
Maybe when they give you that strange look, you could say, it's this or I could scream. Which one do you want?
I might try that line if I can remember it the next time. I think that comes in with our kind of fight or flight. If you think about it, it does with that nervous system release. And it is a form of stemming and it is a part of like releasing those endorphins to get them out. But maybe it also comes in line with the way some of us are really good in emergency situations. When I have a full-blown emergency situation, I'm in the zone. There is no inappropriate laughter. I am like in charge of the world. But in those awkward moments, those moments where you don't know what to do and you don't know how to react properly emotionally, that's where that inappropriate laughter or that nervous laughter comes into play. and that can cause some problems.
When I was, the more started learning more about ADHD, that was one thing that I came across was using humor as like our armor. It was a safe mask to put up. It made us enjoyable to be around, kind of that social lubricant, self-deprecating, jokes and being able to laugh at ourselves. We do that sometimes because we want to get everyone else laughing at us before they can decide that we're being annoying or irresponsible or that we're just too much. So let's make it a joke and get them to come along with us.
Self-deprecating jokes. That was something that I thought was an attribute for me rather than a coping strategy forever. And then I actually, before this episode, I went back and I looked it up um, for my original diagnosis when I went and sat and had all of my testing done and all of that stuff. And you get back, all the information from the psychiatrist and everything. And one of the lines said that she shows a tendency towards self-deprecation, and then went on to talk about how terrible it was. And I was like, I was so upset when I read that because it was from like the one-on-one that I had with the psychologist when I was going in to find out what I had going on. And I thought we had had a good conversation, right? We had joked around a little bit and talked about things. When I came home, my husband had been like, "How'd it go?" I was like, "It went really good." And I got that back. And to read that, it set me aback because I was like, oh, this woman views this as a negative thing. I was thinking that we were having a good conversation and I was just kind of showing my sense of humor. And that was not the case. So we get used to certain things. They do become coping mechanisms. We sign them off as being normal, but it's not normal. It's very ADHD, but it's
Yeah.
not normal to knock on yourself in that way and try to get ahead of those comments that might come. I know we use it as a way to be likable in many situations when you're not sure what is acceptable.
I would have had the same reaction. I'd be like, what do you mean that's one of my strengths? It's like, that's what people like about me. I'm funny. I can find humor in anything. Yeah, I was reminded of when doing a presentation. I used to manage this group that was like a tech group, and I'm not really technical, but giving a presentation, and I opened it because I thought it would be funny to say who I was. I'm the manager of this group, and so I said, I don't have any of the answers, but I know the people who do. I thought it was funny. I thought it was, because I wasn't pretending to be an expert on anything. And there were some laughs, but afterwards, my manager pulled me aside and she's like, don't ever do that again. And I was like, what? And you just undermined your credibility completely. And I was like, I thought I was being funny.
Right?
But then looking, I was like, oh, I could see. Yeah, I could see exactly what she said. You basically started out and said, don't listen to me. I don't know anything. It's how you're going to fit in. You're going to be lighthearted and fun to be with. And then therefore you couldn't be accused of being too much or too different or too whatever.
That's an excellent point, Janine, because that does come up, the being too much. I'm not too much. This is my sense of humor. I could totally see that being sort of almost like a masking option for that because humor really is regulating and we are not knocking humor in any way. We love to laugh. Laughing is a release. It's regulating. It releases tension.
It definitely gives you a shot of that dopamine. But the thing is, it can also hide how much that regulation is costing you. I can look back and think of like how many times did I use laughter instead of being angry about something or being mad at somebody, a situation, or if it was just maybe or when something is so sad, you just have to make a joke about it. Laughing at something that's just so horrible that you would cry if you didn't. It goes back to that regulation of you just being able to manage your emotions through finding something, even if it's just a grain of something funny. Because what's the other, the other alternative is if it's not screaming, maybe it's like falling on the floor and into the fetal position because things are so bad. I have a really good friend who's a nurse. She said, oh my gosh, she goes, there were times where so sad somebody would make a joke. And she goes, I remember when I was in nursing school, our professor, commenting just about humor about so often we use humor because, it's that gallows humor. It's dark humor that no one else would get. No one else would think it was funny. But if you told that joke in a room full of nurses, they would just be rolling on the floor. And they are, they're using it the same way someone with ADHD does. I don't think we're laughing because it wasn't hard.
I agree. We're laughing because it was.
Yeah. Um, because there was anger in those situations when you're so angry and you just don't have that language for it. It's that grief that we just can't name. And just the years of being misunderstood and corrected and minimized is you had to laugh. You had to find some humor in it.
It lets us get close to things without collapsing under them. Sometimes it's survival and sometimes it's joy. Um, but either way, it's not something that we need to run away from or be ashamed of.
We're having a big emotion and we need to figure out what to do with it. So we crack a joke, or we make funny connections. And it's just like what my friend was told, was just don't do that in front of the patient. Don't crack the joke in front of the patient. Yeah. And I think that's maybe for us as we make a mental note, save it for my ADHD friend. I'll tell Jess this afterwards and she'll think it's hilarious.
It's the equivalent of, hey, it landed in Poughkeepsie. I don't know what's wrong with you guys, right?
I had to be there.
I do like the way you say that. It's a well-spoken approach. We know we're going to have the big feelings. We use the laughter to regulate it. Um, it's a way old saying, and I'm sure it's far more extended than what we use, but laugh to keep from crying. I know we're making light of, hey, that didn't land, but we also know we can end up in uncomfortable situations.
No.
It's not about being careless or cruel. The idea is we're trying not to take ourselves as seriously, but we also don't want to flare ourselves open in front of people. We don't want to hurt ourselves or our own feelings just for other people to feel comfortable. That's an important idea too. We hurt ourselves with our own humor. We say it's self-deprecating and we talk about it
Right.
lightly, but that's another vocabulary word that we do use too lightly. It's not it's just self-deprecating
It's just,
humor.
yeah.
The idea behind that is that you are making fun of yourself, but sometimes we make fun of ourselves too hard. And other times other people can feel like we are making fun of them when we think they are in on the joke and they don't.
Have you ever said something self-deprecating and you thought it was funny and then had someone look at you and say, don't say that about yourself? That's not
Yes.
true. I was making a joke. But it is interesting that yet you thought you were being funny and they took it serious.
Mhm. Our ideas of sarcasm get mixed up with other people's
Mhm.
perspectives of us. And I also wonder how often, how many times the people who are coming and saying, "Don't say that about yourself. You're an amazing person," are also neurodiverse because they want to try to lift you up because they don't
Yeah.
want you hurting inside and they don't want to feel that and they're trying to offset that and
Yeah.
let you know you're important. I wonder how often that
That's
happens.
true. Although sometimes I think, well, yeah, it was self-deprecating, but I was actually just trying to do a bit. I was trying to be funny. Like I didn't really necessarily
Yes.
think that about myself. I was just
Right.
exaggerating for the joke, for the punchline. You talk about um, all those inappropriate jokes or laughters. I know I've had those moments where you're at a party and as you're driving home, this actually just happened this weekend. At a party, driving home, thinking, "Oh God, why did I say that?" That sinking feeling of like I thought it was funny, but nobody really laughed, and that one guy kind of looked at me strangely. When I left, did he look at my friend and go, "Like, you guys are for friends? What's her problem?" Uh, um, and then we can ruminate on it for the next 2 weeks about, yeah, why did we say that? No, that's just what happens when a fast brain and a sensitive nervous system cross wires.
That's a good perspective that the brain is fast and the nervous system is sensitive and you're driving home and now you're second guessing yourself where in that moment you were firing off and you were feeling like you were in the zone and you were
Yeah.
probably masking to some extent because at parties most of us are.
Yeah.
It's a rare situation where we don't have to mask when we are in places with different types of people. When we have that one-on-one, we do better with being able to navigate the jokes and the laughter and what we're saying. Whereas when we have those small groups, it makes it harder because we can't placate to each type of person. Then once we leave that party, leave that situation, then that sensitive nervous system takes over and that brain starts to do the replays. And we're seeing each person's individual reaction in that moment kind of for the first time. It's a case that you're typically focused on one, maybe two people, but you are taking in the entire situation. And then you hop in the car and then it's like getting hit by this just big wave of information because your brain is no longer on high alert. So you start to process all the data that you pulled in.
And I was going to say, how did you know I was masking? Because I was at a party and I really didn't know anybody.
Oh, yes.
How'd you
Just
know?
like how I was masking this weekend while I was in a shower. And the shower was great. I love the person the shower was for. I loved our mother. They are awesome, awesome, awesome people. But I was definitely high masking and trying to keep my shit together because the noise was reverberating off the walls of the restaurant and everybody is loud talkers and having separate conversations. It's
Yeah.
like by the time I was in the car, I was hoping that people weren't realizing that I was sitting there with my eyes closed, like trying to just sit and calm down. That was my worry on that one. When you have the small parties like that, that's what you're experiencing. I think that's what most of us experience. I'd say, especially for women, when it comes to a sense of humor, people try to moralize us so quickly and put us in our place.
Mhm.
Like we're not supposed to be raunchy or funny.
We're supposed to be quiet and nice and not make those sarcastic jokes.
That's part of the reason why I love doing this podcast with you so much is the fact that we try so hard not to mask. Which is why we joke around about cussing and saying some dirty things and kind of going outside the box where most people don't. We're trying to not mask and we're trying to show everyone what our ADHD looks like. And if that is any reflection of yours in any way, shape, or form, we hope that it provides a sense of safety and belonging. When we're outside of our little safety net, we can feel like we are getting these looks like you need to stop or that wasn't funny or it can be hard.
Which is exactly why ADHD humor just hits so differently with other ADHD people. When you tell that joke and you realize it's all quiet, when you see the person across the room smiling or laughing, you're like, yeah, that's my people because they get it. Yeah.
A shared shorthand, an inside joke for the ADHD community. It's like you feel like you belong.
Yeah. Like everyone else is looking at you like, what the heck? And the other ADHD person in the room is like, oh, I see what you did there. Good one. Oh, you got that faster than I did. Very impressive.
Yes, someone says something and then you're like, "Oh, I was headed there."
You're like, oh, that was good.
And then you're both sitting there laughing your asses off while everybody's just looking at you like, "Why is that funny?"
Everyone's clutching their pearls. Yeah. Like,
And clutching their pearl. That is something I also appreciate when I have an inappropriate laughter. I have other family members that are inappropriate laughers, and there are other people out there who are nervous laughers, and I can't tell you how seen and
mhm.
uh, safe I feel when I'm laughing at something that's inappropriate and I hear someone else across the room laughing at the same thing, like a
Yep.
movie
Yeah,
or something's happened or whatever. I'm like, there's my people. I appreciate that, you know? I'm not one to
exactly.
use the word tribe very often, but sometimes you can see them
Mhm.
and they're
And the
right
fun
next to
thing
you.
is, yeah. And then after the inappropriate laughter situation, then you can do like riff on it for the next 10 minutes and just keep going on the joke.
Yes. Way better than talking about the weather.
Yeah, exactly. And then 10 minutes later, people are like, you're still talking about that? I'm like, oh, we've got so much more.
We're like, we're just getting started and they've already left it behind.
Still thinking like, I can't believe you're still laughing about that. That was so inappropriate.
Right. But if that happens at a party, then you have the person you're going to talk to for the rest of the evening and you don't have to worry about paying attention to anybody else.
And then it turns out to be an awesome time.
That's nice.
It is, isn't it? It's nice to find people. All of this to say that I don't think it's not that we should stop telling jokes or stop being funny. Honestly, that's one of my favorite ADHD traits is that we are funny and quick-witted.
Humor is a real strength in the ADHD brain. We are not boring by any means, by any description of the word. We are not boring. We're quick, we're interesting, and we really can make the room lighter.
Both of that can be true. And I was just thinking, I've been told before that, when I'm trying to avoid something, I'll make a joke. I'm always trying to use humor to make a difficult conversation easier for me. You're right. A lot of times I'll tell jokes. And it's funny because I used to feel bad about it, but now I feel like, oh, but I know why I'm doing it. Because you're right. It is getting difficult or my emotions are becoming too much. And it's not me trying to avoid it, a situation or a discussion. It's me trying to regulate my emotions so that I can stay in the conversation. How many people don't understand that? And they see it as um, I'm just trying to like, not to fight or, like I'm trying to change the topic. And that's something to have other people understand is we might be having this conversation or thinking about something that's uncomfortable, but the joke isn't, it's just really it is to regulate, because otherwise, what do you do? Scream, cry? It keeps you engaged, even though they see it as you trying to disengage.
Would you be willing to tell someone that?
I would. It's just one of those things, as you and I and everyone else on this podcast are learning more about our ADHD and the impact it's had, that has been something. I have had people criticize me for, you don't want to have a serious conversation. Um, you don't want to deal with these situations. And now understanding of, no, and even I remember at the time thinking, no, that's not it. I'm not trying to, I don't know why I'm telling a joke, but I am. And now understanding, oh no, I still want to be engaged. It's like a release valve. The pressure builds up,
Mhm.
and it's sometimes difficult to regulate those big emotions. So yeah, it is one of those things that's worth sharing with people. Maybe not everybody. Maybe not the people at the party, but
True, true. But those people that you love and that are feeling impacted by it,
yeah, whose relationships are important to you, definitely.
right? And even if, you can say, "Oh, well, I've explained it to them and they still get mad about it," right? Or I've explained it and well, that's okay too. It might be a case that when you explained it, they may not be understanding the exact level. Sometimes it has to be said more than once. I recently ran into an issue where I've had trouble making sure that I'm taking all my medications, filling up my pill case. I have this elaborate ass pill case. It's really cool.
Oh, is that the one you got from Amazon?
Yeah, I love Amazon. I shouldn't, not in the way that I do, but yeah, I had gotten off filling up my pill case, which means I wasn't taking all my medications on time. And then there was some shortages, so I wasn't able to take my ADHD medication, blah, blah, blah. It was really impacting my physical health. And I had to explain to my husband, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't go and fill up that pill case. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll help you out with it. And then later on, he was like, oh, did you want to do that? I'm like, no. And then I would offset into another direction. 2 days later, I'm like, "I really gotta make sure that we pay attention to that today." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So, like, lunchtime comes and he's like, "Hey, you wanna do that?" And I'm like, "No." The 3rd time, when I had some blood work come back and my blood sugar was all whacked out and I'm all upset, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I show him the email from the doctor, and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna sit down and we're going to do this now." And I'm like, "Yes, thank you." Because if you give me the option
Mhm.
I'm gonna just scoot away. And the same thing happens in conversations like that. You're trying to have serious conversations.
Yeah.
So those people that love us, if they understand we're not doing it intentionally, then they learn to very politely and lovingly say, that is funny, but wait, we got to get back to this. People can go along and say, well, I shouldn't have to do that. But um, that's part of loving the person you're with.
I was gonna say, but that's part of being in a relationship, and
Yep.
um, we all make room for each other's, even if you're not neurodivergent, trust me, you've still got things that your friends, your loved ones, your partners learn to work with, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Do this. But he didn't realize how serious it was. He didn't realize when I said, I can't, that I literally meant I cannot physically do this. Um, Once he realized that, then it shifted real quick, and that was awesome. But I also spent a week being like, I talked to him 3 times, but from his perspective, he would have said, I asked her 3 times if she wanted to do this, and she said no, you know?
I think yeah, that's another situation when we use humor. If it is serious, it's hard to say, "This is really serious, I need your help." It's a little easier to push
Mhm.
it away. Whether it's just kinda, "No, not right now," or telling a joke or something. It's again, just goes back to something's hard, something's difficult, and the humor doesn't make the other person more comfortable, but it makes us more comfortable.
Often people will pull that aside of, I shouldn't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah, you don't, but if you wanna
But if
have a
you
good
don't want to,
relationship,
yeah.
yeah. And if
So
you really care about this person, why don't you wanna help them along? Humor is how I make sense of the world. It's almost like the darker the darker the world gets, the darker my humor gets, but it's definitely a coping mechanism.
the question is, when am I using it to dodge something, mask something, fit into a situation that I'm uncomfortable with, right? When am I using it so that I don't have to feel something I do not want to feel yet, which is a biggie.
Look at it not with not judging yourself, but more from a standpoint of curiosity, of being able to reflect. So maybe it's just like, I'm not quite ready, not quite yet, um, to have this conversation. So maybe there is some dodging. Or sometimes too, maybe I know I've had this happen too that I realize, oh, you're right, I am dodging. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm dodging because I didn't know I was dodging. And then you have to do the, like, why am I dodging? What is it about the situation? That's like straight out of therapy 101, like figuring out, self-analyzing. Why do I do it this way? And
It's an ADHD trait in the factor that we are always trying to figure out ourselves, trying to understand in the same way that many, many, many of us love like personality test
oh
and
gosh, yeah, yeah,
horoscopes and things like that. Like we all want to understand the meaning behind how we are. And we
yeah,
all love the idea of somebody just being like, oh no, it's okay. This is what's going on.
yeah.
Um, in that book I'm reading with the everyday intuition, it's very interesting because um, they talk about everybody has this weird need trying to be rational. They try to
Yeah.
rationalize everything. And in the end, it's actually more healthy to learn how to be intuitive and lean on your own intuition, which is something is I think is extremely hard for the ADHD community because we spend so much time being gaslit and people not understanding what we're trying to
Well, we don't, yeah.
say, and not knowing how to communicate that we think everything we're going through is normal and we try to rationalize our feelings when really, if we can go with our gut, not our anxiety, not our depression, but our actual intuition, that it can be just so interesting. Find your own intuition again, find your way back to that. We do love a good way to self analyze. God knows
Yes.
that's the truth.
That's good. Is that another
Um,
ADHD trait, or is it just because a lot of us have done therapy that we're really good at? I love to, yeah. It's not about making yourself small. It's about making a room for all those parts of you so you can be funny and angry at the same time, or playful and sincere.
Laughter is how we survived before diagnosis. In the space I'm at now, I have the ability to keep my humor and decide when it's a strength and when it's a shield. It all comes down to that recognition and understanding ourselves in that space.
Maybe because, gosh, it's been a really hard day and I just want to have a good laugh. Because sometimes I just want to have a good laugh and damn it, I'm funny. So I got funny thoughts. I want to share them with you because you'll laugh too.
At the end of the day, you don't owe anyone constant likability. And you also don't have to make yourself small to be taken seriously,
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. You're allowed to be funny and angry.
right? And not everything has to have a meaning behind it. Sometimes shit's just funny. If this episode resonated with you, share it with the friend who gets your jokes, even the inappropriate ones.
And until next time, be kind to yourself.
Keep your sense of humor.
And remember, you're not alone and you're not the only one who's angry on the inside.